Hello.
Hi.
Uh-oh. There we go. Okay. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Uh-oh. We are. Get rid of that feedback. We are set. Okay.
Can you see everything there? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Looks good. There's Edie.
Hey,
I
am
have
I early? Oh, that's nice.
Hi, Edie.
Hi. Per Nobody's here. I hope people are coming.
Well, if not, it'll be a small but fun group.
Yes, it will be. I think I need eggs too.
I'm recording it so we can.
Ah,
I need a couple dozen eggs, Rochelle.
all right. I'll have to start accumulating them.
All right.
With company, they were going, hi, Craig.
Hi, Craig.
Now, everybody needs to have a glass of wine or a drink in your hand.
I do.
If you don't have, there you go.
Okay, well.
It's mandatory. You make the best challah when you've had a drink.
My San Diego Zoo cup.
Yeah. What a beautiful evening.
It is. Got the door all sanded to the one bedroom. Probably 4 coats of lead paint on it.
Oh,
An old house.
so you're bringing it back to wood, or are you going to paint it?
No, I'm painting it because all the other doors are painted. It would look stupid.
Yeah.
Is our friend from Jamestown going to be joining us?
I don't know.
Sindra has been making challah following your recipe, and people love it.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and actually, I have to send a couple more loaves down to Tampa.
It really works out well. It freezes beautifully.
Yes, yes. Well, my sister was down in Florida, and we sent a couple loaves down with her. They were frozen. And my cousin's, I mean, she ate one in a whole sitting.
Yeah. Well, when this summer, when my daughter-in-law and grandchildren were here, we made challah. So the kids had a great time, because it was just, I mean, we weren't going anywhere. So we were at home doing different things, but, throwing that dough around and braiding it and whatever. And miracle of miracle, you put it in the oven, it comes out this gorgeous loaf. You cut off a hunk of warm bread and throw on some. Oh my God.
It's the best. It really.
It just kind of kept going down.
So I packed on some pounds.
Yeah.
That's that COVID-15.
No, well, I'll tell you, I lost it on June 28th. That whole 6 days, I lost like probably 12 pounds.
Wow.
You were really ill, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
Did you have COVID? Do you think you had the flu or the virus?
I had food poisoning.
Oh, it was food poisoning. Oh God, I've had that. That is brutal. That is terrible.
From Outback, and I normally don't eat there, but I didn't want to cook that night. And Cinder and I got exactly the same thing, except for the salads were different. I got a romaine, she got a regular salad, and it was all over 3 hours later for the next 6 days.
Yeah.
Oof. 3 hours. That.
Yeah, it was I went to bed. Well, could have been more because I woke up and my stomach was bothering me. And then all of a sudden it was over. That's how I ended my presidency, with food poisoning.
Not good. Not good.
No, it
You
wasn't.
cried while you were well. So.
Mm. I would not have been able to make the meeting had it happened the night before. So is Corlin still here, or did she go back?
No, she went back yesterday.
Okay. Well, Sindra has mastered, I think, the art of challah making, but I haven't. Because she does it all, and it's just, I want to make some too.
Oh, it's easy. It helps to watch somebody do it, just
Right.
because it's a little different. The dough is different. But I think just seeing it, and I've made bread a lot, so my cousin, whose recipe this is Susie Goldberg's recipe. And Susie makes it all the time, and it helped to go when I was visiting her. I said, make challah so I can see it. And it really it helps. It's different. If you make bread, you do some things differently.
I used to have a bread machine.
I never, Bill bought me one and I made him take it back because to me, the benefit and the therapy of making bread is kneading it, getting your hands in it. So a bread machine to me is not the same. It doesn't make the same kind of bread.
No, it doesn't. I ended up giving it away.
It doesn't taste as good. I mean, it's convenient, but it's just, that's my own bias.
Is Pam joining us?
No, she's working tonight. Has a class tomorrow, and she's preparing the curriculum. Now, Rochelle, you mentioned the recipe. Are we going to get a copy of that recipe? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you send that out, Rabbi, to people?
No, not yet,
Oh, okay.
but I will.
Because I did copy it and sent it to Rabbi so people can have it.
Great.
Was this advertised? Oh, I'm sure it was advertised.
Oh, yeah.
Here comes Janice.
Hey.
There.
Hi, Janice.
Hello.
Hey, I didn't get a chance to say have a great trip to your dad's.
Thank you. Thank you.
You going to see your son this time?
I am going to see him. We're going to do something that I would never do pre-COVID days, and that's drive in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I'm figuring the traffic won't be so bad. So yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. In fact, Brett says we should be able to park right on the street by his apartment. So hoping that's true too.
Yeah.
That would be a definite plus.
You can say hi to my cousins that are there. Of course, they're in Greenwich Village.
Yeah. That's an area they had looked at moving to at one point.
Are you making bread?
Yeah.
Hi, Sandra.
You want to do it?
No. I just got out of the shower.
I was telling them how well you bake.
Why don't we begin? And welcome everybody. I am going to record this. We are recording this, and it'll show up on the Temple's YouTube page in case anybody wants to refer back to it. It's sometimes helpful. So if you don't want to be on the recording, then you can turn off your camera, but otherwise we're going to do that. And I'm going to spotlight Rochelle so that we've got, we can...
So I can hear.
Details.
You're not here.
I just want to talk a little bit about Challah and its role in Jewish life for a moment. So Challah has evolved to become the symbolic representation of all food, especially on Shabbat. And in a traditional sense, there are two loaves that are usually placed on the Shabbat table. Now, those two loaves can have lots of different possible meanings. There are the daily sacrifices, which are represented by the two daily sacrifices. There's in the biblical text, there are two recitations of the Ten Commandments. The first one says that we should guard the day of Shabbat, and the second one says that we should remember. The first one is remember. The second one is guard. So we should both remember the day of Shabbat, but also guard or participate or protect this day. And one of the ways that we do that is with these two loaves, reminding us that Shabbat is about remembering the history and the things that have happened in Jewish life, but more guarding is also about doing. So you can't only remember the history, you've actually got to be participating in it. And so you have these two loaves of challah which appear on the Shabbat table. The variety of different kinds and styles, all of that is more cultural tradition than anything else, and not about sort of Jewish legal sort of rules. There aren't really any rules about what challah should be or could be, but we have come to know challah as this sort of very fluffy, a little bit dense egg kind of bread is the only really way to describe it. And traditionally it's braided. It's braided in two different ways. For Shabbat, generally during the year, we braid it in a loaf. And for the high holidays of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, we do it in a circle as a way of signifying the cyclical nature of Jewish life, and also of the time of the year where we are beginning one year, ending one year, beginning the next. So part of the baking of challah actually involves this other blessing known as to take challah. And the taking of challah is symbolic of the temple sacrifices, in which there was a loaf or a meal sacrifice that was offered. And so traditionally when you bake in Jewish life, you would take a little piece of the dough. Once the dough is all mixed, take a little piece of the dough, you put it into a ball, bake it, and it actually gets burnt. And the blessing for that is the sort of standard opening blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe. Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, who has given us these commandments and commanded us to la'afrish challah, to separate challah, so that we recognize that not everything is just ours to do with what we please. We also sort of recognize that some things are returned to God, and so we offer that little piece of challah in that symbolic burnt offering. It's actually interesting. It's the closest that we have come to continuing any kind of sacrificial experience in the community. All the other sacrificial rites have been changed or translated into verbal prayer. It's just this one little remembrance that we have. And so there's lots of opportunity to be creative with challah. Lots of people do so many different kinds of things in terms of things they put on top, things they put in it, all kinds of ways of making it your own. And, if you talk to 3 or 4 different people, you'll know that those 2 or 3 people have the best challah recipe in the world. So, people will often, in Israel, the joke is, it sounds better in Hebrew, but essentially the joke is, oh, I'd like you to meet my friend Challah. I'd like you to meet my friend Sarah. She has the second best challah recipe in Israel. Because, of course,
Okay.
by definition, you have the best challah recipe. So tonight, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Rochelle, and for Rochelle's unbelievable expertise in making.
You're really too kind, believe me.
It is excellent.
It is good. And I'd like to definitely give credit to my cousin, Susie Goldberg, who makes excellent, the second best challah around, but excellent. And I gave the recipe to Rabbi so he could share it with all the viewers. And those of you who took the cooking class, baking class last year in time for the holidays, this is the recipe. So we're going to be making that tonight, okay? So bear with me as I go through this. So ingredients are pretty simple. We need raisins because we're making challah for the holiday. For Rosh Hashanah, it usually it's sweet. It's for the sweet New Year, so you add raisins. I add raisins a lot because we just happen to like raisins in our challah. But a cup of raisins, and of course, the yellow ones or the gold ones. We need a stick of butter, and we're going to melt that. 4 eggs, and these happen to come from my own very own chickens.
I ordered 2 dozen eggs.
Flour. I'm partial to King Arthur flour, and you'll notice this is bread flour. You don't have to use bread flour, but it is obviously made for making bread, and it tends to have more gluten in it, so it rises. And King Arthur is an excellent grade of flour. You can buy it in any grocery store. And I am also partial to adding whole wheat flour to my challah. I think it gives it more flavor and body. So when you see the directions, I usually add 1 cup of whole wheat to the recipe. So it's 1 cup to, I think it's like, there's a total of 6 cups of flour. So 1 of those cups will be whole wheat, okay? So it's not overwhelmingly whole wheat, but it gives it just enough flavor. And the other ingredients happen to be salt. It's a tablespoon of salt that we'll be using, and yeast. And the yeast is like 2 tablespoons of, you'll see that, and I buy a lot of yeast because I do a lot of bread baking. So I can go to Sam's and you can buy a big package of yeast there, or you get the packets. So it's 2 tablespoons or 2 packets of yeast, okay? And sugar. Yeast needs something sweet to help it work. So we're gonna add like a 1/2 cup of sugar. This is very simple, and I do this whole thing in a mixer. And I happen to have a KitchenAid mixer. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Let me make sure you can see.
You can see everything really well, Rochelle. The view is great.
But everything is done with a mixer, so it is so simple. And oh, I forgot the most important thing, my wine. The wine makes everything go really well. So I'm going to take this butter, this stick of butter, and I'm going to put it in the microwave for about 40 seconds, and I'm going to melt it. So let me do that.
Like one of the food cooking shows.
Okay.
Food channel.
In my mixing bowl, I put the 2 tablespoons of yeast, the salt, and the sugar. They're already in here. That's how simple this is. Just put it all together and just kind of mix it up. Then I'm going to add hot water. And I don't mean boiling, but it is hot. It's not tepid. And it's like 1 3/4 cups to this.
That's not exact because she does it so often. It makes sense to her. And she's using an electric kettle. I do like that. I don't know that anybody uses it at our house, but I do like it.
And while we're waiting, I just emailed everybody the recipe so that you have it. And if you have any questions, ask Rochelle because I don't know anything about baking.
I just poured the water into that yeast and sugar mixture, and timers are great. So it's going to just soften and start to bubble up for 10 minutes. So I just set that, okay? And while that's softening for the 10 minutes, I melted the butter in a measuring cup in the microwave. If you stick your finger in it, it should just be tepid, which it is. I'm going to crack 4 eggs into this butter. And it helps the eggs come to room temperature. I'm just going to mix it up. And after my yeast is done, I'm going to add the butter and egg mixture to the yeast.
She didn't mix it. She's letting them get.
So you just kind of scramble the eggs up in the butter. And of course, fresh eggs are amazing because they're this amazing golden color. So in the butter, it just stays this almost orange yellow color, which adds to the, I think, the color and beauty of the bread. So we're just waiting for the yeast to kind of dissolve in whatever, and I'll get that going. And then I'll mix it up. But I made a batch earlier. So what I can show you, this is the bread dough that I made and put in here at 5 o'clock.
Wow.
Okay, so this is the one we're gonna braid and make in a minute, but I wanna show you how the dough looks. One of the things, those of you who took the class before might remember is the amount of oil that we use. So in the pot that I'm gonna put the dough, I'm gonna pour some oil because it helps keep the dough moist while it's rising. And you'll notice I'm a little generous with the oil. So you can see, I hope, oops, can you see how much oil there is?
Mm-hmm.
Probably about a fourth of, not quite a fourth, but it's definitely like quite a bit in the bottom, and I'll show you. One of the things that's different with making challah to making regular bread is at this point you would put it out on your surface and you would flour your surface, you know, and you would knead your bread. You don't do that. I don't add any more flour once my dough has risen.
Oh.
All right. And it's very moist. It's oily, but I'll show you that in a minute, okay?
And what kind of oil is in the bowl?
I use canola oil.
Canola. Thank you.
Yeah. So something pretty mild and neutral is what you're going to use here. And, you know, some people, when you're making it, and I'll show you the texture of the dough once I get going, is it's I don't want to say gooey. It's just kind of very extremely moist, but it comes out of the mixing bowl beautifully into the bowl that you're going to rise it in. But then the oil just keeps it very loose and comes right out of the bowl onto the mat. In fact, I'll show you.
All right.
So here's the mat. I don't know how many of you have seen these. I got mine from Crate and Barrel. I love it. I use it for making pies. If you've ever seen them, these are the greatest things. You can go online and order them from Crate and Barrel. Just easy to clean. It goes right on your counter. Great for when you're making bread or anything. You can they wash up really well. So here's this dough that's risen for 2 hours. And I'm going to show you. I'm just going to let it come right up.
Wow.
And the oil that was in here, that's it. I'm not going to add any flour to this, nothing. And you'll see that there's the oil that was in the pan just kind of comes out with it, right? Now, the temptation would be for those of you who have made bread before, as I said, is to add flour because it's kind of, there's oil here and you think, oh my God. But look how nicely, there isn't any dough sticking to this mat whatsoever. So I said, this makes 2 loaves, right? So I'm just simply going to kind of judge what I think is half. And you take your fingers and you just divide it in half. So that's 1 loaf and that's loaf 2. Now, Rabbi was saying that one of the things about making challah is that traditionally we braid it, and that's what we're going to do with this. And my dough, my yeast is getting there in terms of softening. So I'm just going to let these sit here for a minute. And as soon as this is ready, we'll go to the next stage. Any questions so far? Anybody? Questions? The chef's going to take a drink.
I just remember I flunked braiding when I took your class. Up until then, I was okay, but I definitely failed braiding. So.
Well, there's not a pass fail. It's like you can be as creative as you want. Then it's perhaps practice. And I think just not being intimidated by the dough. It's like you can always slap it around and you know what? Just pull it back together and start all over again.
Janice, it's because you have curly hair.
Is that it? Okay.
Okay, we only have another minute and then I'll mix this up. But yeah, it's, part of it too is once you start braiding it, you want to do it rather quickly because we're going to leave it, once we braid it and make our loaf, it sits on the cookie sheet or baking sheet for another hour. So I've already got a loaf done that we'll look at, but I want to show you how to braid it, how to make the dough and then braid it. So this one's what rose for 2 hours after I mixed the dough. And now it's ready to be made into 2 loaves. And then once that loaf is made, you're going to let that rise another hour before you bake it.
Oh.
So that's why I'm trying to condense this into, Rabbi told me I had like 50 minutes. This is Julia Childsky.
Child.
Okay. So I'm just about ready to go. So I want you to see, hopefully you can see this. Let me see if I can. It's amazing how you get really, can you see how foamy that is?
Yes.
Okay. So my dough or my yeast is now nice and foamy and, with the water, the sugar and salt, it's ready for the next step. Which is I'm going to put it over here on the mixer. I'm going to add that butter and egg mixture that we made. So that was 1 stick of butter and 4 eggs. And that's going to go right into the yeast mixture. And then I'm going to put the whisk on my mixer, and just for about 3 minutes, or just actually a couple minutes, I'm just going to mix the egg and yeast mixture together. Okay, on low, just to mix it through. Okay, then I'm going to stop, and I'm going to add the first 3 cups. Remember, there's 6 cups of flour, and in my flour, I put 1 cup of whole wheat. You can see the color difference, and 2 cups of white, and that's just going right in the bowl. And I'm going to mix that for 3 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to get 3 more cups of flour, and it'll be all white flour ready, because that'll be the next thing that goes into the dough. So a total of 6 cups of flour.
Rochelle, for those of us who are used to cooking and maybe not baking, how important is the
Sorry.
how important is it in terms of the accuracy? Is it like 6-6, or is it maybe, like is it flexible? What's the
Well, like what I have found, 6 cups works beautifully. Okay. My cousin would say if you get nervous because the dough is sticky, you can add more. I would say don't do that, because I think it's most people's inclination to add more dough, because if you're accustomed to making regular bread, you're constantly adding flour when you're kneading it, whatever, because you don't want sticky dough. Challah dough is sticky. And I think it's partly of why it's such a nice, it's a rich and, dough. It doesn't need more flour. Your inclination will be to do that, and I'm suggesting you don't. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to switch from the whisk. I'm going to add the second 3 cups of flour, which is again just the white flour, to the bowl, and then I'm going to put the kneading hook on my mixer.
Oh,
So
she's really using both.
So we took the whisk off, and now we're putting the kneading hook on, okay? And added the second 3 cups of flour. That's how easy this is. You're just throwing it in your mixer. It's like, I feel like I'm cheating, but it's so easy. Okay. Now this, I'm going to turn the mixer again on low for 10 minutes. And I should say, this is also the point at which you add your raisins. So I'm going to add a cup of raisins to my dough, and I almost forgot. So that's where this comes in, okay? And I'm going to mix for the 10 minutes.
How big is that?
Now the dough that I took out that I had been rising for like those 2 hours, I want to get my cookie sheet ready, and I poured oil on here.
Oh.
So it doesn't have to be a lot, but you can see that there's quite a bit on here, right? If it's too much, you can take it, if you're making another batch, and pour it into your bowl. If you feel like you have too much in there, or wipe some out.
You can microwave that if you want.
But you can-
Rochelle,
yeah.
I have a question for you. I'm curious, your bowl that you are raising the dough in, how big a bowl is that?
Pretty large. I'm trying to see if it says, it doesn't tell me. This is probably one of the big aluminum bowls. I have lots of these large bowls for
Okay.
that. That's a good question. I'm not sure.
In Yiddish, it's called the Gesund bowl. The big one. For those of you who grew up, using grandma's recipes and things like that, there was a period of time where ingredients were measured in a glessel, and a glessel was was a little cup that everybody understood to be a standard mixture, and people used it because they didn't really have measuring cups and things like that. And it was actually the glass that a yahrzeit or memorial candle would come in. You would burn the candle, and you would end up with all of these little glasses that nobody knew what to do with. And so because you're not really enough to drink with and whatever, so you would use them as a measure. So there are these interesting grandma Yiddish recipes that say, 3 glessels of this and 2 glessels of that, and it actually refers to this little kind of cup that the candle came in.
Well, this is next thing. I got approximately 7 minutes to go. I'm going to start getting this ready to braid, okay? So you remember I divided the pot of dough into 2 pieces. So what I'm going to do now, if I'm going to braid it, I want to take this and make 3 balls out of it. By the way, you can make rolls. If you wanted to make rolls, you just sit here and pinch off pieces of the dough and create rolls and put them on a baking sheet, and you have challah rolls, and they're great. You can also freeze your dough if you don't want to use it right now and use it later. Okay, so if I have 3 sections, what I'm going to do is start to roll these sections into long strands, right? And braiding is braiding. So if you ever braided hair, which I never had hair long enough that I remember that was to braid, but
that again goes back to Rabbi's statement why I didn't know how to braid it, because I never braided my hair. Gotcha.
So we can make it up. We'll just figure it out. And this is where you get real creative, Janice. Whatever you feel like doing, right? But we're going to make a round loaf for the holiday, or at least attempt to. And notice, I haven't floured this board or anything. It's the oil that's in the dough, and on my hands, the extra oil that was in the bowl that allows me just to move around on this mat freely and pick up the dough and do whatever I want with it, and it doesn't stick. And those of you who took the class, you remember now, when I did the class, I had made the dough ahead of time, and it was rising faster than we could braid it, I think. Some of it was like, oh my God, it almost took over the room, right? And then you took it home and baked it. Well, here, we're doing everything basically in real time. I'm trying to make them almost the width of my mat. Put them side by side. Okay. Now, the instructions that I gave the rabbi, I took out of a baking book, and just about all of them say that when you braid bread, that you start in the middle. I've seen it done different ways. I've seen where you can start at the top and just braid it, or you can start in the middle, and you just I bring the braid that's all the way, or the strand that's on the right, over the two. And then I just start. The nice thing about a mat is I can turn the mat, maybe. And then when your bread's done, you can take it and just kind of scrunch the two ends together, pick it up and put it on your greased pan. Now I just said we're going to make a round loaf, right, for the holiday. Well, to make it round, if I take this end here, and I'm just going to start like a,
Okay.
spiral, I'm just going to turn it in on itself and keep going. And then I'm going to take this end and fold it under. See that?
I know it. Much simpler.
And I will let this, I don't know if you can see it,
Yeah.
rise. So I'm just going to let that rise. This thing will double in size
Oh,
in an hour.
oh yeah.
And the other thing that we're going to do once we have our bread together is we're going to brush this with just beaten egg. And that's what gives it kind of a gold crust, if you will. So let me finish this one. I'll just make this one into a regular loaf. Any questions so far? So again, I'm going to take this and divide this piece into 3 balls, right? And all you do is just tear off, like kind of approximate what you think are 3 relatively equal balls of dough. Okay? And then you just sit here and roll it so you have these strands.
Rochelle, when you let it freeze,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
okay.
Would you
When you were freezing dough, do you just let it come back to room temperature at room temperature and then just start from there?
Yeah. Have you ever bought pizza dough at Wegmans? Frozen pizza dough?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you bought frozen pizza dough at Wegmans, it's dough that they've made, they put in bags and they freeze it, and you bring it back to room temperature and then you work it. That's exactly what you would do here. So you could make this dough, put it in a freezer bag and freeze it. And then when you're ready, you could make your challah. Or like what I do is I make the challah and I freeze it. And then I just take it out as I need it. Either way.
Nice mat.
So I'm rolling this, but I'm also stretching it as I roll it, kind of pulling on it to make these strands. My husband's going to come home tonight to the smell of baking bread, Nothing like walking into a house when you...
Mm-hmm.
So here we go. We got 3 strands, like in a row. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to take this strand on the right and just fold it over the other 2, and then just start braiding. can hurt. So this is a regular loaf. Okay. And I'm going to then take some egg and brush them with the egg. But they're going to rise for an hour. Before I do that, let me take this out so I can show you what this looks like. So here's the dough, and I wanted you to see. It's just been kneading in this mixer for 10 minutes. You can see how it just comes away. Here's the dough. And I'm going to put it right in this pan with the oil. You'll see how it just falls out of this. And it's a sticky, right? It falls out of the bowl.
All she's doing is she's just encouraging it to go.
Scrape the mixing bowl out and add it to this dough that's here. Now remember, there's quite a bit of oil in here. Again, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm going to take the dough that's in there and I'm just going to flip it. Make sure that it's covered completely in the oil. Okay. So I'm just kind of moving it around. In some ways, it's the closest thing to kneading it, but not really spending a lot of time doing that. But I want it completely covered in the oil that's in here. And that's going to then rise in this bowl for 2 hours.
Covered. No, she didn't have it covered.
And I'm going to cover this with a clean towel and just leave it off to the side so it's not disturbed. That's it. So then the last thing with those other loaves that we made is taking another egg, just put it in a little dish, beat it, and then we're going to brush that on those other loaves while they rise. That's it. I don't add water to it. I don't add milk. It's just a beaten egg.
And she didn't wait until they were rose first.
And Rochelle, if you wanted to put seeds, would you put the seeds now or when would you do that?
I don't put seeds on mine.
Okay.
But you would, if you're going to put seeds on, yeah, you would do that now. So before it would go in the oven, but after you put the egg on, would be a perfect time then to put seeds on it. So let me see if I can get my computer. I think I can do this. What I did is I set the table. So here is the finished.
Oh, look at that.
Lovely.
So I put that out, I figured, for the holidays. So there's the loaf. And for the Rosh Hashanah, we'll do that. But this is the loaf. I don't know if you can see.
Yes.
Yeah, we can see it, Rochelle. Looks very nice.
So that's what it will look like after it's risen, it comes out of the oven. And you see the golden, that's from the egg wash that goes on. Now this is plain, this has no raisins in it, but obviously with the raisins, you would see them here and there. And Rabbi, like you said, if you were to put seeds on, you would put that on after you do the egg wash.
Very nice. It looks delicious.
Yeah. So what questions can I answer?
How do you know when it's done?
Great question. It goes in the oven, a 325-degree oven for 25 minutes. And it bakes beautifully. When you take it out, and if you hit the bottom of your bread and it sounds hollow, it's done. The 25 minutes, I use a convection oven. And 25 minutes works just right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I suppose you could cut the recipe in half if you don't want to make 2 of them.
Yeah, you could do that, or you could take and divide your dough in half and freeze half of it for
Yeah,
another
you
time,
could do that too.
and just make one loaf.
Also, can you use olive oil, or was that a no?
Olive oil gives it a different flavor. It's not a neutral oil.
No, but
It would change the taste of it. That's why using safflower oil or canola oil is so better.
because I just never buy anything else. So.
You can try it. It would probably alter the taste. I mean, it would alter the taste.
I mean, in Europe, that's all they ever use, right?
In certain places, yeah.
Okay, canola.
I think challah, like anything else, is a platform on which to experiment and have your own creativity. And you know, as Rochelle said, it takes a little while to sort of figure out what your process is, right? Whether you like to braid in 3s or 6s, and you can get very complicated braiding things that are going on. You can do 12-part braids. You can have top braids and bottom braids and all sorts of things like that. So
Very fancy.
It's kind of this interesting sort of thing to play with, and I think that goes also for your mixer and your oven and it takes a little while to sort of figure out what your best sort of plan is. So if you try it and it doesn't come out perfectly, that's just part of the learning, right? You just got to figure out how to tweak it here, tweak it there, and eventually it becomes yours.
Exactly. There's no right way or wrong way. It's the fun thing about cooking is you play with it and make it your own.
And how long will the bread last? I know everybody will want to eat it and just eat it, but say there's only one of you in the house. Do you have a couple days? Do you refrigerate it or?
Yeah, there's no preservatives, so I always refrigerate it.
Okay.
But you can also freeze the finished product.
Okay.
Yeah.
So often, if we had leftover, we would freeze it, and the kids would take it out and use it whenever. And that works beautifully. Take it out, put it in the toaster, away it goes.
So you slice it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It
Or
is
rip it
sliced.
apart if you have no patience whatsoever.
Yeah.
The other thing, it makes amazing French toast.
Oh,
So the first day when it's fresh, it's like everybody's just slicing it, grabbing it, whatever. Second, third day or whatever, slice it and make some French toast. It's just amazing. But in the toaster, it just brings it back. The flavor just is enhanced by the toasting.
Yeah.
But it's like Rabbi said, if you can't eat the whole loaf, cut it in half or cut it in thirds and freeze freeze it in smaller portions and take it out as you want it. Freezes beautifully.
Thank you.
So after, as the challah comes onto the table, the other blessing that is said is the motzi. And motzi is a really interesting blessing in that we have chosen bread as the symbol of all food. So instead of, there are blessings for pretty much everything. There's a blessing for fruits that come on trees. There's a blessing for vines. There's a blessing for food that's grown in the earth. For blessings for things that grow, in different ways. And what is interesting in that the rabbis really determined that bread was the symbolic representation of all food. And I guess they were feeling that it was the closest that we come to manna, which God provided for us as we wandered in the desert. And so when we sit down to a full meal, a meal always begins with the blessing for eating bread, or thanking God for the bread that we have. And it's an interesting one in that it doesn't say thank you God for bread, right? Most of the other food blessings do. They say thank you God for the fruit of the tree, the fruit of the vine, the fruit that comes out of the earth, whatever. But bread is different. Bread, we have the blessing that says, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Now, what does it mean to bring bread out of the earth? Obviously, we don't have, challah loaves buried in the ground, right? But so it's really a recognition of the partnership that exists between people and God in the work of creation. Bread is a lot of work. If you have to make bread right from the wheat to the table, it's a lot of work regardless. And certainly, Rochelle, thank you for doing all of this. But it's a lot of work if you have to grow the wheat and thresh it and grind it and make it into flour, and then all the things you do to actually make the bread from earth to table is a tremendous series of tasks. And I think that the tradition really was mindful in thinking about it as this is our partnership, right? God gives us the materials, God gives us the opportunities, and we have to make it into the food that we can really enjoy. So, and it doesn't come easily, right? It's not just something you just, pull off. You actually have to think about it. Bread is something you have to plan for. You've got to let it rise it rises twice, right? It rises once when you make the dough, and then you braid it, and it rises again for another hour, and then you have to bake it. There's a lot of kind of mindfulness that goes into this. And so the blessing, I think, reflects that and says, this is this partnership that exists between people and God, and together we're celebrating the miracle and the wonder of creation. And so when we say that blessing and we cover all of the food that we might eat, we recognize that it didn't come out of nowhere, that it came out of this dynamic partnership between us and God. And especially mindful of that on Shabbat and holidays, when many of those are focused on, Shabbat always is focused on God's creation, and so and a lot of the holidays are agriculturally based in some way or another, and so there's always these wonderful kind of messages that go into the holidays that are also ones of significant appreciation for the gifts that we have. So on that note, I want to thank Rochelle again. This was fabulous.
Thank you, Rochelle. For sure.
Great.
And any closing thoughts or questions, please?
Her husband is going to be thrilled when he gets home and finds 6 loaves of bread ready to put whatever on. Just now.
somebody hacking off at the ends of that bread, I can.
That was going to be my question, is what you were going to do with all these loaves of bread.
Freeze them. I'll freeze them. Yeah, one will not make it to the freezer, but
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Great.
oh, pleasure. Yeah, next time in person. Huh?
Very good. Okay, and I am going to have this up on our YouTube page probably tomorrow, so that you can access it if you missed a step or you want to review it. It'll be there. And again, thank you, and wishing everybody a great evening, and we'll talk to you all next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.